Hello, we're doing a maker series right now. We're just interviewing makers about their creative process, etc. My name is Tikal. I'm the senior at Depaul University in Chicago. And today we are going to be talking about another maker.
I'm Megan Moore. I'm also a senior, and I am recording from the East Coast, but we are all in this together.
And a big welcome to our maker. If you could just tell us your name, your business, what you specialize in, and just a brief introduction of yourself before we get into the next part.
Okay, my name is Brandy Perry. I have a small self-business that I started. It's called Hippie Nerd Creations. I specialize in deconstructing old vinyl records and making them into jewelry and other household items like tabletops or wall hangings. I currently don't work outside of my house. This is kind of what I do full time. Besides, living at home in quarantine right now. That's where my focus is, other than my family right now.
So we were curious about what got you into making, like some of your earliest memories or maybe some creative things you did as a kid.
I think it was probably when I was in 5th or 6th grade, my family started doing remodeling at home. Like we were, taking stuff down, kitchen totally gutted, putting all new stuff up in the house. And I really got interested in home design at that time and interior decorating, and that was my dream. I thought I was going to be an interior decorator, but as I got in middle school and then in high school, I kind of realized maybe that's not exactly my thing, but what I really like doing is taking stuff apart and putting it back together, either to refurbish it or to make it into something new.
That is really awesome to hear. It's nice to see so for the makers that we've interviewed, it's nice to see how their interest in creativity when they're younger evolves into something as they grow up, which is really exciting. And kind of related to that point, we also want to know, what are some of your best creations?
I really got into a few years ago refurbishing old furniture. So like old makeup vanities, literally stripping paint or sanding off the finish and staining it so that it looked like it was in its original state, back in 1940 or something like that. And so we had a couple of family heirloom pieces that were given to us by our grandparents and that. And I got into really woodwork is what I loved it. I loved refurbishing wood. So that's been fun. A cedar chest that I got from my mother-in-law's mother. That was one that I really enjoyed doing. And then lately, I've done a couple of mosaic tabletops made from vinyl record pieces. And I didn't know what I was doing when I started. No, I hadn't seen it done, but I have tiled before. So I thought, okay, I can make the tiles out of record pieces. I'm sure I can affix it on there, and I'm sure I can grout it and all that. So I ended up getting some old furniture, like at thrift stores, estate sales, garage sales, anywhere I could find it, refurbish the table, and then finish it out with that vinyl mosaic. And I did an Abbey Road one where I did the silhouettes of the Beatles walking across Abbey Road and just, filled in with a little bit of mosaic tile around the edge, all made out of vinyl record. It was totally all black, grouted it, and I loved that piece. I think I'm going to make another out of a couple of other tables that I have that are square, which look like record album covers, right? Because they're square. So that's probably been my favorite piece.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have not heard of anything like that. So
I did an Abbey Road one where I did the silhouettes of the Beatles walking across Abbey Road and just, filled in with a little bit of mosaic tile around the edge, all made out of vinyl record. It was totally all black, grouted it, and I loved that piece. I think I'm going to make another out of a couple of other tables that I have that are square, which look like record album covers, right? Because they're square. So that's probably been my favorite piece.
that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have not heard of anything like that. So
Yeah. We have a wood shop at our makerspace, but there's a lot of stuff in there to get used to and know, so it's a little bit daunting.
Well, and yeah, I feel the same way. I don't, I didn't grow up around carpenters or anything like that, but I know that, when I moved out of my parents' house years ago, I was broke. I bought everything from thrift stores. And if it needed fixed, I would just figure out a way to fix it. It may not look the best, but I figure out a way to fix it.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's something that I definitely want to learn woodworking for. So how did you kind of see your learning and understanding of woodworking progress as you started working on more things? Because I know you've mentioned like working on vinyl tables, just refurbishing things in general. I really like refurbishing as a concept. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that.
I mean, seriously, I wouldn't even say that I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just like, I'm going to try it. The worst it can do is not come out exactly like I want, but I'm pretty sure even if it doesn't come out exactly like I want, it's still going to come out structurally sound or okay, or, not falling apart. Growing up with refurbishing our house, remodeling our house, and watching a neighbor down the street have this whole wood shop that he would just build the most awesome things, like a cartwheel for his cart that his kids would drive out of old just junk, seriously, and it worked. And that's where I got my interest in, home design and stuff, even though I didn't go into that field. I like playing with tools, I guess. That's I've bought a few tools. I recently have been using a router to do some of my edges of tables, to make sure they don't have that really sharp edge on them. And I've never worked with a router before this past year, ever. So it's just a matter of trying something. And, I watch a lot of home improvement shows. I watch a lot of woodworking shows. And I always have watched those. I've always watched This Old House since I was little.
That's awesome. Also, it's not only just cool, but you're also learning, and it's not buying something new, so it's super sustainable and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I didn't really think about it. I started my little business a couple years ago. I didn't really think about it when I first started, because I started from getting old records from my grandmother's house. She was moving out of there. She's like, come go get these. You're the only person with a record player that I know. I'm like, okay, I'll get them. Well, she'd stored them in the garage. They were all warped, fused together, dirty as can be. And I made a few gifts for my aunts, like earrings made out of old records as gifts that were from grandma's house. So there was sentimental value. And it kind of, it sparked something into me. Like, I was like, oh my goodness, I love doing this. I kind of have missed making things because I hadn't done it in a few years. And, I was like, that's it. I'm going to start making these. So I went to local record stores. I was like, hey, if I make record earrings, would you guys sell them in store? And the first person I went to said yes. So I was scared to death to ask. I'm not a salesperson at all. That is not even ingrained in me at all. But I had to take that step, and I was nervous, but I took that step. And once I started selling there, then I got a little bit of confidence and started asking around and getting a few more stores, put stuff online on Etsy. And have been going to like live markets, except for in 2020. Live markets aren't so much of a thing. There's been a few outdoor ones, but it's been a weird year.
Yeah, okay, cool. That's a kind of a cool origin story where you took it upon yourself to ask and they actually said yes. So
yeah.
You kind of told us about how you got your materials, but can you talk a little bit about your creative process?
Sure. So being that I like to deconstruct things in so many weird ways, like I have a wood piece down on my wall downstairs that was the top of a dishwasher cabinet, but I hung it on the wall and made, some word art on it instead of, it's not its original purpose. That's usually my thing. Whatever it is, I don't want it in its original purpose. And when I see something being thrown away, like those records, I went through this process of, okay, how do I cut those? So I got a Dremel scroll drill that we happen to have. I tried cutting it. Well, records are plastic. They're kind of finicky to cut. So then I moved on to using a hot knife, which is kind of like an X-Acto knife, except it heats up. So in those wood burning kits that you sometimes find places, they have an extension on those that's like an X-Acto knife, and that's what I use to make my initial cut into a record. And then, you know, there's some edges on it, so then I take an X-Acto knife, for lack of a better word, I whittle the side down so that it's smoother, and then I will also, you know, use like a glass burring tool to get rough edges off of, or even sandpaper.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, that's cool to hear. That, from like a standpoint of someone who's never done that kind of stuff before, that sounds very difficult and very complicated. So it's nice to hear just how different people make different things, because for me, I'm mostly like a 2D artist and I'm trying to learn more of that field of making, but hearing about it from other people is always really interesting.
Sorry.
Oh,
And
go
I
ahead,
think,
sorry.
I've met a few, you know, you kind of get this community, especially online, of artists that are interested in the same thing as you. So I've been following vinyl artists, for lack of a better word. And I know there's one other girl, she does it totally different from me. She can cut it with a Dremel and, you know, make it into shapes. I cannot do that. It has to be with the knife for me to make exact lines and shapes the way I want it. So I think every artist is different in that aspect, because you have your own skill levels naturally, and then how you are able to, you know, train yourself a little bit. You can change that a little bit, but maybe not so much. You got to stick with what you know and what you know how to do and what your skill level is.
Definitely. I still want to get better at this stuff, but we won't have access to our makerspace until it's safe again. And unfortunately, woodworking is something very hard to do at home, at least for college students right now.
Yeah.
But you touched on this a little bit, so I'm just curious to ask. You mentioned connecting with artists online and seeing how their process works. Have you connected with artists online? Have you used social media or the internet to feature your business or to learn anything new, etc.?
You know, as far as connecting with other artists, you know, it's either been in person at a lot of the events that I've gone to that are markets, let's say, or concerts, which I've been able to go to some of those too. Those have been awesome. But it's literally mostly social only, because they don't live around. I mean, I haven't met another artist in Indianapolis that is doing vinyl record art, or vinyl record jewelry, I should say. I have seen some vinyl record art that's big time art, like, you know, a display at a hotel, that sort of thing. But I haven't met those people in person. It's, you know, I've only followed them on social media, and the other jewelry artists that I've seen do stuff out of vinyl records, same thing. They live out of state, and I've only connected with them via social media. Always commenting, you know, that looks awesome, and vice versa. Like, they're really encouraging also, you know, try to pump each other up a little bit.
That's nice. Yeah, especially now with this whole situation, it's great to have people who you can still talk to, and a community that's still there, even though it's online.
Yeah, definitely.
I had a question, because I know you sell on Etsy and you talked about being in person at fair type of things. How have you seen your business grow?
Well, you know, every year it's been a little bit more, as far as sales go, it's been a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. This year in particular, I did a couple of shows in January and a couple of more in February, and like, was kind of worried because it looked like I was going to be on track to sell a lot this year, just because of how good those 2 first months were. Well, then the shutdown happened, or quarantine happened, and everything got canceled. That I mean, I think I have 1 show left this year that's outdoors, that's confirmed. So it's kind of hard to talk about growth this year, especially, but the Etsy store that I opened, like last month, I had a record month of online sales, and online is hard. I mean, it is hard to sell stuff online. You can direct people to your website. You can, you know, you're always trying to post data in your social media feeds, all that stuff. And that's been hard to stay motivated this year, especially because I'm like, you know, people don't have the income to buy stuff necessarily this year. So I kind of feel bad about trying to push, hey, buy this pair of earrings. I feel bad about that, but at the same time, I'm like, I have more stock of earrings than I've ever had because I have none of these markets. So, you know, it's obviously in-person sales have gone down this year. Online has gone up. So it's kind of balancing each other, but you know, hopefully next year will be great and I can get rid of a whole bunch of stuff that I'm making all year.
Yeah, but I'm sure that's going to keep changing as everything is changing right now. But.
I think so too.
So I'm really hoping for good news for your business as well. I know it's a hard time for everyone, but you know, knowing that you're actively pursuing markets and you're working on your online business and online sales are growing, we just hope for the best for everything moving forward for you. And kind of a related follow-up question about your business. How have you navigated, you know, selling or creating a business as a creative? A lot of our students are often wondering, how do I kind of turn my craft into something that's profitable? And kind of related to that, I know there's a bunch of sub questions, but how do you prevent burnout as a creative?
Well, take breaks, definitely. I don't make something every single day. At least right now I haven't. But then there's times I get like really into it and I am like cranking stuff out, you know, hundreds of pairs a week, even though they're just going to sit here at my house right now. You know, the tabletops that I'm doing, those can be frustrating because it can take me 20 hours to do a table. So I just, you know, schedule my breaks, make sure I'm eating, because I will get so in, I'm sure everybody does this, but I will get so into what I'm making that I'll forget to eat and drink. So, you know, that's important. As far as getting into selling stuff, I would just suggest, you know, what I've done, apply to a marketplace, you know, like one of those outdoor events. When we get back to that, apply to one of those. The worst they can say is no. I've been rejected from a lot of festivals, and that's okay. Especially my first year, I was rejected from a lot of things. My second year, I got into those things because I reapplied the second year. So a lot of those festivals and markets are, you know, they're juried, and art shows, they're juried, and you might get a lot of rejections, but that's no reason to stop. Just try again next time. Figure out if you can make your application better for next time. If you want to sell in stores, you know, ask like I did. The first step was asking. If they say no, that's okay. Go find somewhere else and ask them. The worst they can say is no. So, you know, part of creating stuff for me is stress relief. Takes my mind off, you know, all the worries of the world. So making stuff is great for a person. It doesn't matter who it is. It's good for you. Getting rid of that stuff and selling it, it's hard to do, but, you know, try. That's all I can say is just try. I've seen some weird stuff in marketplaces that maybe aren't my taste, but they're other people's taste, and they will buy that stuff. So I would say never give up, always ask, and if you get told no, just try again.
That's really great advice. Definitely, people get discouraged. It's nice to hear someone say that happened to me, but other people liked my things. So.
Right, exactly. That discouragement, I mean, it can get you down. Like, I really wanted to go to that music festival, but they rejected me, and Oh well, I'll try again next year. That's what I decided. So
No, definitely. We have a few more questions. How would you describe your creative process in one word?
making something new out of something old.
Okay, I like it.
Alrighty, so as Meg mentioned, we're kind of getting towards the end of our interview, but some follow-up last-minute questions. What are some things that you enjoy doing outside of work for fun?
I enjoy camping a lot. We've loved that this year because it's kind of the only little get out of our house and stop looking at our four walls. Like going hiking, outdoors basically. I love it. Try to get out as much as possible and get some steps in.
Yeah, getting outside now especially is very important. I don't know how the outdoor areas are where you live, but at least in Chicago, finding some outdoor areas is a little bit hard because there's people everywhere.
Right. Yeah. Going to a lot of out of the city parks has been great because people are literally out there, but they're not walking. I don't know what they're doing. They're getting fresh air, I guess, but they're not walking or they're not going onto the trails in the woods. So it's been great here. We have a lot of good state parks in Indiana and we have a lot of good city parks in Indianapolis. So
I just wanted to ask if there's anything else you wanted to add before we wrap this up, and also where would you like people to find you?
thanks for listening to my story. I love talking about this stuff. My jewelry, and even a couple of tables, I sell them off Etsy. So it's Hippie Nerd Creation on Etsy, Facebook, and Instagram, and the link to my Etsy store in my bio there. That's pretty much it.
Awesome. Alrighty. Well, those are all the questions